Hello and welcome back to Pan-Demic Cooking. I'm Chef Bob here at the Vintage Room, and tonight I'm going to be making what I call a fish stew. In France it's known as a bouillabaisse, in Italy it's known as cioppino, in Louisiana it could be a Cajun boil. The difference being is in France we use a fish stock, in Italy we use a little bit more herbs, but this is just something basic and simple and it's very easy to make. I'm starting off with about a half a stick of butter, letting that melt down. That's going to be our base. And then from that I'm going to add garlic. Now I'm only going to add 2 cloves of garlic. Now people have asked me what's the easiest way to cut garlic or chop garlic. What I've found is the traditional way is you simply tap it with the flat side of the knife. It peels away extremely easy. You got a piece of garlic. I'm only using 2 cloves in this dish, so I'm just making this for my wife and I tonight. And anything more than a couple of cloves, when you're working with fish, it gets a little strong. Now if you leave the garlic whole, it's at full strength. So what I want to do is cut this down just a little bit, and like any onion or scallion that you cook with, the finer you cut the garlic or the onion, the less garlicky or strong it tastes. So if you don't want it really strong, just chop it down, cut it down real fine. Now in this case, just 2 cloves, just roughly chopped is perfect. Now I'm going to be using about 2 pounds of clams and about 1.5 pounds of mussels. So you want to have a dish that is deep enough to hold everything. And I love to put green onions in this dish. Make sure that you don't brown off that garlic. Once garlic starts to burn, it becomes very bitter. Then what I'm going to do is I've diced up 2 different colors of bell peppers, a red and an orange. And it just adds so much to this dish. Once you get the base of the bell peppers, the onions, and the garlic, I just use a can of chopped clams. And I don't strain this off. You leave the clam juice right in that. And now you start to get the aroma of the garlic and the onions. Add 1 bay leaf. You don't have to use it if you don't want. This is more of the Italian style where they use bay leaves and a lot of oregano. But I'm just tossing in 1 bay leaf, and then this is just red pepper flake, maybe 1/2 tablespoon. Sprinkle that in. Jazz it up a little bit, as we say. Because whenever you're using that bell pepper, you want to add something that actually works against it, so the sweetness and the heat is perfect. Then I'm using something that I came up with. It's saffron. Now this little jar of saffron probably has enough saffron in it for my life and probably my kids' lives. It is very expensive. It works great with seafood or any type of fish stock or Spanish dishes. Call for a lot of saffron. Whenever you're using saffron and you're using a butter or a cream sauce, I take a little bit of milk. This is just simple whole milk. A couple sprinkles of the saffron. I put this in about 2 hours ago. It's turned the milk almost like an orange color. Milk has a tendency to pull flavor out of this herb. So I'm just going to add that right into the pot and make sure that all that gets used. I think saffron, if I'm not mistaken, is still the most expensive of all the herbs, but it's well worth it. just a little bit, and I'm using sea salt. We try to use the sea salt because we're using product from the sea. And tonight I'm using and drinking a simple Chardonnay. This is out of New Zealand. I like the New Zealand Chardonnay simply because it's not as oaked as the West Coast Chardonnays are. And I don't want it to overpower anything in this broth. It works just perfectly. The other ingredient that I put in this fish stew is fennel. I cut the bottom off. It's not going to have that licorice taste after it cooks down, but it richens this broth up like you can't believe. It's delicious. Now, this is a great dish that you can do as a main course, as an appetizer. People will lose their mind over how good this is. So the first fish I'm putting in is just a simple mussel. These are white clams, and we go right in on top of the mussels. I have, this is optional, but I have about 10 really nice, these are about a 20 count shrimp, so large shrimp. And this is going to take about 10 minutes to cook, where I add just a simple chopped up, I chopped up about 5 Roma tomatoes, and that simply goes in right on top of these tomatoes. Now all of the herbs, the spices, the salt, the pepper, the root vegetables are at the bottom. When this gets done, then I'm going to stir it all from the bottom up. I also throw a piece of fish right on top of the clams as they're cooking. It's just a simple white fish. I think this was tilapia, very mild tilapia, cod, halibut. It all works great. It's a good firm fish for this dish. So we're going to let this cook down about 8 to 10 minutes. I'll keep an eye on it. When the clams open up, this dish is done. We'll see what happens when you come back. Welcome back. Well, I think our stew is done. One thing I did want to tell you is that you could really jazz this up any way that you want. You could put a couple crab legs in on top, cut a couple of lobster tails, put those in on top. You could even put parboiled potatoes in there if you really wanted to make it into a stew. You could also put andouille sausage in it. Now you're playing around with the Louisiana Cajun end of it. But this, just as it is very simple, very basic. All the shells have opened up on the inside. I'm just going to throw a little bit of chopped parsley. Parsley kind of freshens this up, and it always makes things look better. It looks like a lot, but the majority of it is shells. I like plating these on a deeper bowl. That way we can put the juice in it. I got some great French bread that we're going to dip into this sauce. Take a piece of this fish that just falls apart, lay that off to the side. And with that fresh fennel, it's just going to be a very rich, tasty meal tonight. Always want to have a good French bread. You just simply tear a big chunk off, you put it on the side because you don't want any of that juice to go to waste. But that's our dish. Fish stew Very simply done. I want to thank everybody in their comments the past few weeks. Again, if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. There's no charge. It alerts you to when we release another video. My next one is going to be on fried pickles and fried peppers. Very simple, but it is dynamite. So until I see you next week, have a great weekend. Always drink your wine, and everybody please be safe.